Hi, welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. Hydrangeas are beautiful flowering shrubs. We're going to show you a few common varieties. Also, spraying tall plants can be a challenge. That's just ahead on the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. Joining me today is Linda Lanier. Ms. Linda is a master gardener right here in Shelby County, and Mr. D will be joining us later. All right, Ms. Linda, we appreciate you inviting us over to your beautiful yard.
Hi, thanks, Chris. Thanks for coming.
No problem. You have beautiful hydrangeas.
Well, I have some, that's true.
You have a lot. Can we talk about some of your common hydrangeas, though?
Yes, there are 4 primary hydrangeas grown in the Mid-South. Okay. And there are 13 species totally, but 4 that are primarily grown here. Okay. And the first one to open in the spring is the oak leaf hydrangea, which is a southern native. It is easily identifiable because it has a big oak leaf shape to the leaf.
Right, very distinct. Right.
Yes, and this grows, the blooms grow on old wood, but if you cut anything off anytime after the end of July, you are going to cut off next year's bloom. Okay. These don't even need much pruning. They don't need much water either. You can kill them by overwatering them. Right. So they're good in a woodsy area where there might not be a lot of irrigation. Okay. Since they're a native, they grow in the wild and they never get any irrigation. So wow. And they survive. So they need a little, but they do really well. And they always have white panicle-shaped blooms that are great to cut nice. And bring indoors. And you would only want to prune them if they get out of bounds or if they get leggy. Okay. And these are drooping a little bit. I'll probably cut these back at the end of July.
So you would consider that to be leggy?
Yeah, then, because it's drooping. Well, I do like some of it coming down to the ground, but I like it growing up a little bit more, and I have some back here too in the deeper shade. And this will take deep shade, not a lot of sun.
That's going to be my next question. Okay.
And our heat, the blossoms will tend to get burned.
Okay. It's definitely a beautiful plant, but yeah, distinct leaves on that.
Yeah. So let's talk about the next common hydrangea used in the South, the Hydrangea macrophylla. Yeah. These are the most common hydrangea grown in the Mid-South, especially in the Memphis area. This is Hydrangea macrophylla. It's actually also called a mophead or even a French hydrangea, and or hortensia, the French way of saying it too. I think this is All Summer Beauty, which is a great reblooming variety. Most of the common hydrangeas, the blue hydrangeas that we grow here in the Mid-South, you can see the leaves are kind of rounded. Nice. You can tell them by some of those. They're a little bit large and fat, but kind of rounded leaves. Most bloom on old wood, so you need to be careful not to prune after the end of July. But these grow actually on new and old wood. Okay. So you can prune them in the spring, but primarily you would not prune these after the end of July, because if so, you'd be cutting off a lot of the bloom for next year. Okay. Now, I don't do a lot of pruning. You can to make it bushier. One of the things that's great to do in the summertime is when you cut blooms to take inside, is to trim back to a good healthy node. Or you can also take something like this and pinch it at the end and do pinch pruning. Okay. And this will increase it'll grow more stems out from there. You may want to come back a little bit further, but it'll encourage it to grow more stems. You'll get at least 2 branches off that, so you'll have more blooms and it will thicken up. The first couple of years that you have a new hydrangea in the ground, you would not do any or pruning at all, really. It's just not healthy until you wait a while. But once these get a little bit bigger, and you can fertilize them in the spring with a 15-30-15 or a 15-15-15.
Okay, complete fertilizer.
A complete fertilizer. Not too much on the nitrogen, of course, because you want to get blooms, which is the middle number. But they do pretty well without it. They just have to have, in the South, they have to have enough light to get a good bloom, but they have to have enough shade that they don't burn up in the afternoon.
Okay. Look, I definitely wanted to ask you about the different color blooms. How do you get those different color blooms?
Well, it depends on the cultivar of the plant. They are primarily going to be blue in our acid soil. You can encourage that by using a soil acidifier.
Okay.
But depending on the cultivar depends how intense the color is.
Okay.
If it's a darker blue or a medium blue or a light blue. So you usually buy it or look it up. Buy it when you can see the bloom or look it up on the internet for a photograph.
Okay, well let's go check out what else you have for us.
Okay.
So what do we have here?
This is Hydrangea paniculata. This is one of the 2 sun-loving hydrangeas
Sun-loving,
that always
okay.
bloom on new growth.
Okay.
So their pruning needs are different, and this is actually a later summer bloomer. As you can see, it's while the Hydrangea macrophyllus have bloomed, this is actually not going to bloom for another 3 or 4 weeks.
Okay.
It's the latest to bloom in the season, and it will have only white blooms, and they will stay white, although they can age a little pink. There are a lot of new cultivars out that pink up very quickly with the
Okay.
Hydrangea paniculata. But it's not, you don't have trouble with cold weather with these. They love the cold weather. And like I said, they have to have enough sun to bloom well.
So full sun?
Yes, pretty much
Wow.
full sun. Now, actually here in the south, they need some afternoon protection,
Okay.
shade,
Okay.
because if not, the blooms will get burnt.
Okay.
But pruning on these, they bloom, a lot of times I don't get mine pruned very well and they still bloom well, but you can prune these pretty hard, about 1/3 of the branches. You just need to leave 3 good nodes on a stem.
Oh, that is pretty
And
hard,
everywhere
yeah.
when you cut it back, I cut back pretty hard when I do prune, and it causes 3 stems to come out, so you get many more blooms.
Okay.
And a much bushier plant.
Okay. Let's go to the next. All right, so what do we have here?
This is another one of the hydrangeas that blooms on new wood.
Okay.
This is Hydrangea arborescens, and this is probably an Annabelle, the most common. And these are actually foolproof also.
Okay.
They bloom all on new growth. At the end of, I leave them up all year long. They're just starting to come out. They're a little bit later blooming than the macrophyllus. They look kind of green now, but they'll have a big white head on them. I have some that are just huge heads out front. And they leave them on all year. They're fine. They need sun to bloom. They get a little wilty in the heat
Okay.
of when it gets over 90, but they pop right back. And if you water them enough, they should be okay. But the great thing about those is you don't have to touch them the rest of the year. Leave the
Good.
blooms on. I love the blooms in the winter, especially if it snows on them.
Okay.
And around February, late winter, when I go out to prune, I prune them all the way down to the ground, maybe 6 inches, but you can prune them all the way down to the ground. Now, as these are fairly young plants, as they get stronger, they do tend to be floppy in the rain. They're
Okay.
breeding some that have stronger stems, but you can leave a kind of a ring of maybe 12 to 18 inch stems around the outside, and it'll help support a little
Okay,
bit.
okay.
So you can put rings. I think I have rings on some of these. They grow up through the rings, and you wouldn't see those except when you prune them. But I also take bamboo stakes about 5
I've
feet,
seen that done. Okay.
and I poke those in around the plant and run a little twine around them, and it keeps them from flopping.
Okay.
If not, you have to come out and shake off the wet flower heads that
Wow.
causes them to droop, and then they would hold that shape.
Okay.
But these are absolutely stunning. They're great to dry. I always have a big basket of them. You can decorate with them in winter. They're just foolproof. And sometimes I haven't gotten around to pruning them up until April, and that's fine. Just delays the bloom a little bit, but they're still going to come out, and bloom like their little hearts out. They're just great bloomers.
Good deal. Good deal.
So they're really great to work with.
Okay. So what do we have on the bricks
Now this
here?
is really one of the
Interesting.
climbing hydrangea. This is
Okay.
Anomala
Anomala,
hydrangea. This
okay.
is subspecies Petiolaris, and this is probably the most popular. It's really the prettiest. The only thing about these is you can see one little bloom.
Ah, I see
I
it,
just
yeah.
put this on this wall last year when the tree it was living on was taken out.
Okay.
And I did get some blooms this year, but a lot of times it has to grow up pretty tall and have a lateral branch on it. As you can see, those are some are hugging the wall, some have some lateral branching. That's when it will start blooming. You can put it on a tall pole and it will usually start to bloom earlier, but I like it to climb up something high like a tree.
Okay.
It grows in sun or shade, but the blooms only last about 2 weeks. That's
Oh,
the biggest
wow.
drawback.
Okay.
But they're pretty types of lace cap blooms, but you can see the leaves have kind of silvery veins, and
I
they have
can
a
see that.
really pretty structure, and they turn golden yellow in the fall. They're just stunning. They're very pretty. But they look really pretty, I think, all through the year. And they will grab the brick. You have to be careful planting them on anything that's
Yeah, that's
wooden.
gonna be my
that
next
you have to
question
paint.
about the brick.
Yeah,
okay.
once these we helped attach them a little, but they'll just grow right up the brick, and it's like ivy. You don't get them off. So.
Okay. Now, what about pruning?
I'd never prune these. You can prune if you want to keep them. Now, if they get up too high and start to go a little wild, I have to get on a big ladder and I will prune them some. There may be a few that are going the wrong way or over to my window, and you can prune those off pretty much any time. But I've never had to prune one of these. Usually, they're very slow to get started, so you don't usually prune them very much. But they're gorgeous in the fall, and they have a nice pattern. But the leaves, or that silvery leaf, is really pretty all through the year.
Beautiful, beautiful silvery leaf. Ms. Linda, we
Yes.
thank you much for the
You're
tour
welcome.
of your garden to see your hydrangeas. We definitely appreciate that.
You're welcome. Thanks you for coming.
Thank you. Loam.
Yeah, loam or loamy soil.
Right.
Yeah, that describes a type of soil that we really want in our gardens. And it can be, you can tell people that you'll ask, what kind of soil I got? Oh, I got a loam, and they're like, well, dang, I got
like clay
clay.
to me.
Yeah, I got clay.
It's like gumbo to me.
Yeah, so loam is the type of good friable soil that farmers love. It's usually found like in bottomland naturally, where
Memphis
stuff's
silt loam.
Yeah?
yeah,
One
yeah,
of the best
and it can
soils
be
around.
right, and it can be a combination of silt and humus and a little bit of sand, so it's a nice and a little bit of clay, little bit,
Little bit,
clay,
that's right.
little
Need
bit,
a
just the
little,
right little amount of clay to make it, have the right water retention plus good drainage, so it's the type of soil that we kind of want.
Yeah.
And it does occur naturally in some places,
It does.
and it's high in vegetable matter, decayed vegetable matter.
Right.
So it has a little more organic or humus content too. So
Okay. Yeah, that's what a lot of people want.
yeah,
Loam.
good garden soil is
garden
usually
soil.
called loam.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. D, let's talk about how to spray those taller plants. How do we go about doing it, and the calculations as well?
Okay. Well, the first thing, you need a sprayer that will get the spray up to the top of the plant that you're spraying. And you need to do it from the ground. I do not recommend
the ground,
putting
okay.
a ladder up
Yeah.
beside a tree and climbing up there with a backpack sprayer and spraying, because that's a recipe for breaking a leg. But try to and there's sprayers that will spray 30 feet, with a little 12-volt pump. A lot of sprayers that will spray 30 feet in the air. But the first thing, when you get one like that, when you get a sprayer that will do the job that you need it to do, spray it with just water. Go around the plant and spray it to the point of runoff.
Okay.
You don't have to drench it, but spray it to the point of runoff. Being sure to direct your spray to the underside of the leaves if you can, and also try to get coverage on the outer side, the upper side of the leaves, and figure out how much water it took you to do that. And then you know how many gallons per acre you're putting out.
Yeah, that's smart.
And then look at the product that you're spraying, the fungicide or the insecticide, and it will tell you how many ounces per acre you need to apply, usually. And so if you put, if you put, if the recommendation is 5 ounces to the acre, and you are applying 10 gallons of water, then you put 5 ounces in 10 gallons of water. But 5 ounces of the acre doesn't mean 5 ounces of that one tree.
Right.
You would have to break it down to how many square feet that tree is covering, and break it down to that percent of the acre. And if it's 1/1000th of an acre, then you would put 1/1000th of 5 ounces on that tree. And so you put 1/1000th of that 5 ounces, when you're talking about milliliters now, in the amount of water that it took you to cover that tree.
Gotcha. Okay.
If it requires 10 gallons for you to do it, then you would put the number of milliliters in 10 gallons of water. If I can do it with 5 gallons of water, I would put that number of milliliters in 5 gallons of water.
Okay.
And do it. So you start with the amount of water that you're putting out, and then you work backwards from that.
Okay.
Is what you do.
So the amount of water to start with is most important.
It's most important because, and then, you know, if you change that just a little bit, you need to be really consistent, because if you change that just a little bit, then your application rate is off.
Okay. Wow, how about that?
So, it's pretty important, and you can do that same type of calculation with a 4 ATV sprayer. You can do it with a backpack sprayer. You can do it with a pump-up sprayer. You know, spray what needs to be sprayed. You know, if you need to spray your yard, and the recommendation is you know, 5 ounces of this product per 1,000 square feet, and so you run over your yard first with water, with a 4-wheeler or your hand sprayer or whatever. Figure out how much water you're putting out, and then you put that amount, you know, in the spray tank.
Wow. I wonder, is there a place that homeowners can actually go to actually figure out calculations?
You can. I have a fact sheet that I found online.
That's a good one. Yeah.
It is a really good one. Herbicide sprayer calibration guidelines that has some really, really good pointers for that. And this is focused on backpack sprayers and let's see, I think boomless sprayers. I mean, it's just a 3-page publication, and has some really, really good information. Some conversion factors and things like that, which is really good. But you know, the label is a legal document that you're bound by law to follow, and you need to figure out how much you're putting out with your sprayer in order to follow the label.
Right.
And it's also, you know, if you don't do that, there are 2 things that could happen. You know, you may not get enough product out there.
That's one.
And you may not control the problem you're trying to control. And the other thing that could happen is you may put way, way too much product out there and harm the environment. You know, and it can kill what you're trying to save. You know, especially if you're dealing with herbicides.
Right. And I think a lot of people do the latter.
No.
Yeah. Put out too
This
much.
is not the case where if a little bit does you a little good, a lot does you a lot more good. It may be a little bit does you a lot of good, and a lot will wipe you out.
Wipe you out. Never quite heard it said like that. All right. Wipe you out.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the homeowner's yard. Okay. So they have a 2-gallon sprayer, right? So if they're walking their yard out, which way should they go? North, south, east, west? I mean, how would you do that?
What I try to do, if I'm applying a product with that kind of sprayer, I try to go both ways. I try to put out 50% of the recommended rate going one way, and then check, you know, perpendicular.
Right.
And that way, I won't have streaks in the yard, especially if you're dealing with herbicides or things like that. I may have little dots, but I won't have a long streak, because if I have streaks going both ways, you know, I may have dots, you know, a lot of dots.
Okay.
But so I do that with fertilizer and lime and anything. Try to figure out try to put out about, because if you don't do that, if you try to put out 100% of the product with one pass, you run out after you've covered 3/4 of it. What have you done?
Good, yeah.
You've over applied.
Right.
And you don't have enough to finish the job. But if you try to put out about 50% going east-west and then another 50% going north-south, or you know, just perpendicular to the direction that you went, then your coverage is a lot more even, and you probably won't run out.
That's a good rule of thumb. Good rule of thumb. And quickly, before we have to wrap it up, it will tell you on the label what to wear.
Right.
Protective
Follow
gear.
the label, I don't think I've ever seen on the label where your flip-flops and shorts are required. You know, most of the time it's going to tell you to wear rubber boots and long pants and long sleeve shirts, and sometimes it will tell you to wear a face mask, because if you got wind blowing, you don't want to inhale, you know, what you're putting out, and protective glasses, because when you're filling, You know, I've seen it splash up many times, you know, and if you get something splashed in your eye, you know, you need to wash it out very quickly with water, with running water. But if you've got safety glasses on, it feels real good for that splash of water to hit those glasses, and you're thinking, I'm glad I got the glasses on.
That's right.
But I wear a hat, a
Yeah.
brimmed hat to protect me from the sunlight, and then long sleeves and long pants, and at a minimum, and then rubber boots. If you're walking through where you're spraying, don't wear leather, because
Good point, yeah.
leather can absorb. But wear rubber, and my rubber boots are real short and they're cool, and you know, like 4 inches tall, and that takes care of it.
Yeah, I have the same pair. Good stuff, Mr. D. Yeah, it's always a good reminder to be safe when you're out there spraying. Sure.
That's right.
All
Follow
right,
that
thank you
label.
much. Good stuff. What we have here is nut sedge or nut grass. It is a very difficult weed to control. It prefers moist conditions, but also can thrive in extreme drought conditions. Distinct characteristic of nut sedge or of a sedge is it has a triangular stem. And it also has underground nutlets. And let me see if I can pull one of these up and show them to you. Clean it out. And it's easy to come out when the ground is moist, of course. There's one, actually, that I just pulled off. I don't know if you can see it that well. But it's full of carbohydrates, and this is how the plant is actually able to grow. So if you want to control this in your vegetable garden, be very careful. Make sure when you pull it up, you get all of this plant, because if not, if you leave those nutlets in the ground, they will reproduce. There is a chemical that you can use. The homeowners can purchase it. It's called Image. Read the label on that. Again, do be careful, because this is growing in a vegetable garden. All right, so a Q&A session, Mr. D. We have some good questions here.
Yeah.
All right. Here's our first via email. What is the best fertilizer for the blush Nandina? I use Miracle Grow with a little Epsom salt. I noticed I had a lot of leaves dropping, and this is from Miss Barbara right here in Memphis. A little Epsom salt with her Miracle Grow. See?
Magnesium sulfate.
Magnesium sulfate.
You need to do that if your soil test asks you to do that.
Right.
Then the way you answer that question, in my opinion, is it depends on what the soil test said.
You know, that's what I was going to start out with.
It depends on what the soil test said. Don't just keep doing the same thing every year, because you're going to build up high levels of potassium.
Yeah.
Not potassium, phosphorus.
Phosphorus,
is
which
the
is
one that's
Miracle
most
Grow.
stable.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't know what the analysis of that Miracle Grow fertilizer is.
I don't either.
But if it's the middle number is pretty high, and he's done that for a long time, if you build up a very high level of phosphorus, then it will interfere with the uptake of other nutrients, and it will make the plant look like it's dying.
Yeah.
And make it look bad.
And
So I
drop
would
leaves.
Right, drop leaves and turn your yellow and all that. So I would, and magnesium sulfate, you know, that can, I guess, lower the pH because of the presence of sulfur.
Yeah,
that would be lowering
Yeah.
the pH, and Nandina's
acid-loving shrubs.
Are they acid-loving?
They're acid-loving
But
shrubs.
you can get too acid.
You
when
can.
it starts to burn the soles off the bottom of your shoes, it's too acid.
You
And,
can.
know, you can get too acid.
Right, because I'm going back to the whole leaf dropping.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so yeah, you get
Yeah.
get too much in there. But yeah, Miracle
I'd
Grow with a
get a
little Epsom salt. Oh, I think that might be a little bit too much. Because you're right, Miracle Grow, for the most part, has a high middle number, which is phosphorus, you know, for blooms. But yeah, I think that might be too much.
Yeah. I guess a question I would have is that I use Miracle Grow with a little Epsom salt. How long have you done that? Do you
Right.
do that every year? How much do you do it several times during the year? You know, and you may not need any phosphorus for 10 years
Right.
on that spot
Right.
if you've done that
This is
for
true.
a long time.
Okay.
So I would certainly get the soil check.
Get the soil tech, Ms. Barbara. I would definitely go that route as well and follow it to a T. You should be just fine. Your Nandina would be just fine.
Don't guess soil test.
Don't guess soil test. We say it often. All right. Here's our next viewer email. What are the best shade-loving vegetables and fruits to plant in Memphis? Okay, and this is from Vanessa right here in Memphis via YouTube. So it's the best shade-loving vegetables and fruits.
I don't
Come
know.
on.
I don't know of a shade-loving vegetable to plant anywhere. Everything, you know, photosynthesis. You know,
Sunlight, right?
the sun is the ultimate source of energy.
Yes, it is.
And you've got to have access to the sun, and the more you have, the better you will be. I mean, you can produce fruits and berries and vegetables with limited, partial
limited,
sunlight. They won't be as good and they won't be as plentiful.
Right, you won't produce as much.
But you can do that. But as far as shade loving, there's some shade loving perennials.
Yeah,
and
right.
Maybe some shade loving annuals, but I don't know of any vegetables. And
yeah, because they all want full sun.
Yeah.
I mean, now if you look at some of your leafy vegetables, I mean, they can deal with just a little shade, but that don't produce as much.
that's right. That leaf.
That's leaf.
Photosynthesis.
Right, photosynthesis. Right. A little shade, but nah. I mean, they still want full sun.
Sorry, Vanessa.
Yeah, and of course, you know about your fruits. I mean, your blueberries, raspberry, all that kind of things. Full sun.
Yeah. They're and if you plant them in the shade, they're gonna try to get to the sun.
Ah,
They will
Good point.
lean and they'll do everything to try to get to the sun.
Good point. Yeah. So, Miss Vanessa, it's gonna be tough, right?
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Because full sun is what they need. Photosynthesis, right? All right. So good luck. All right. So, Mr. D, we're out of time. It's fun as always.
Thank you.
Remember, we love to hear from you. Send us an email or letter. The email address is familyplot@wkno.org, and the mailing address is Family Plot, 7151 Cherry Farms Road, Cordova, Tennessee 38016. Or you can go online to familyplotgarden.com. That's all we have time for today. Thanks for joining us. Did you know each week we shoot more Family Plot than we have time to air? You can watch these extra videos at familyplotgarden.com, or you can catch up on any shows you may have missed. I'm Chris Cooper. Be sure to join us next week for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.